Hello, I am Presley Poe, here with the Power of the Collective. I'm an international educator specializing in haircutting and hair color services. I have with me my beautiful model,
Beatrice,
today, and I'm super excited to go full volume for you. Today, we are going to learn how to create the most volume in fine blonde hair. We're going to be utilizing only a couple sections, so I'm going to invite my assistant Chelsea in to help me brush the hair out. Now, if you're thinking, brush curls? What? We've been told that we cannot brush curls, but I've got a couple tricks for you. When brushing curls, what I'm actually looking for is fullness. I want the hair at its biggest and its fluffiest so we can see where the density lies. So today I'm going to teach you this haircut in just a couple subsections, and I'm going to teach you how to find the density in your haircut as well. For this haircut, we're only utilizing 3 subsections. So with the understanding of our zonal placement and the use of our cutting wheel, we can know that sometimes we can take less and equal more. So follow me in this haircut as we do full volume, taking the weight that lives previously in the perimeter and move it all the way up to the top. We are starting this haircut off by brushing all of our zones up to be square to the floor and perpendicular to the apex. After I get the hair brushed adequately, I can now use a comb in the hair gently and safely. So once I'm perpendicular up, I can find my guide from the back and my guide from the front, the 2 short pieces that you see here. I'm going to walk all the way up to those, and then I need the hair in the front to be slightly shorter than the hair that is in the back. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, turn towards me, beautiful, and now we cut. Now, if you're wondering where I cut and why, I cut up to the point that the length was on the bottom, matching the top to the bottom. This is connecting all of my zones and will help me be short to long. Now that we have done our external movement, it's time to move into our internal support. So I'm going to continue with a 3-finger hold, as we've seen in our previous videos. 3 fingers, lift your center finger. 2 fingers go under, 1 finger goes on top. Now let's find our guide. It's right here. And so now that we're here in our internal support, we have our guide and our secondary guide. We're just going to cut. Beautiful. So now we've done our external movement and our internal support. Those are going to be our big volume buttons with short in the front and long in the back. Now, we're going to move into the density zone, and what I want you to understand here is that you want a big jut out. Let's have a look, and I'll explain. So, holding the hair forward, tilting everything forward, and coming into that density zone, which would be about right here, lining everything up, what I'm looking for is this. This is going to keep my perimeter really, really strong. But what I don't want is this. Now, I want you to consider, remember when we talk about square is strong and square is volume. Anywhere you see it already presented in the hair means that the hair is going to be full and voluminous. I want to keep that in my density zone. So all I'm going to do is clip right up to that point and then round out the edges to make it short in the front, long in the back, full in the perimeter. And finally, we're going to walk it all down into our length zone. All of our zones staying put and gently being walked forward. And then just to make this a little bit shorter and keep this nice and long, just going to 1, 2, 3, turn towards me, and 1, 2, 3, tilt back. All right, now that we have done our external movement, our internal movement, we have found our density zone and we left it nice and strong, it's time to do our perimeter or our length zone. So I brushed all of my zones completely down and into their natural fall position. So I'm going to follow this, just putting my comb in, and then 1, 2, 3, turn towards me, 1, 2, 3, tilt back. Beautiful. And that means now that the hair in the front will be shorter and the hair in the back will be longer. So I'm going to come down, 2-finger hold, square to the floor, 2-finger hold, dropping all the way down and cutting square to the floor. There's my length guide in the back, and there's a curvature and movement that I want to create in the front. So square to the floor, that's my fullness. I'm going to round that off right there. And lastly, for the subsection, the face frame. We're gonna keep her in natural fall position, looking straight forward for the fullest finish possible. So I'm gonna take my scissor over, and I'm just gently going to glide over the outside of that subsection. Now let's have a look and see if that worked out for us. Remember that we are looking for volume, we are looking for structure and rounded edges. So let's see what we have now versus what we had before. We pulled the density zone up. We have full volume in the top and the back. And you can see here that we actually have about a 2-inch separation of volume where there was none before and where there is some now. We are to the opposite side of the head now, our second subsection. We're gonna go through 3-finger holds. So 2 fingers go under, 1 finger goes on the top, straight up and square to the floor. Now remember that I want the hair to be a little bit shorter in the front. So 1, 2, 3, she turns towards me, and that's all the movement, all the way up until I can find my guide. There's my guide in the back, and there's a short guide in the front. So, we have done our external movement. I'm gonna wait for my guide to pop up right here, that beautiful square to the floor subsection. We have our guide from the back, guide in the front, guide from the top. So we're gonna 3-finger hold forward, 1, 2, 3, turn towards me. Beautiful, that stretched a little bit in my hand. Find our guide behind, and we're going to cut right up to that line. Coming back straight forward. Now we're going to go into our density zone where we want to see that big jut out, that beautiful density that's going to showcase itself in our length. Stunning, and that's exactly what I'm looking for, square. And a little bit of a rounded edge, little bit of a rounded edge. I'm just going to soften that up and make sure that those ends got clipped. That's exactly what we're looking for before we move directly into our length zone. So now that I've done my density zone, I'm going to comb the hair back down into its natural living zone before putting into my comb and walking it gently forward. She's going to turn towards me so that the back is longer and the front is shorter before we cut square to the floor and rounding out the front. Last step for this subsection is going to be our face frame. We're going to close the gap between this and our length here, leaving the hair in its natural zonal placement and gliding in a slide cut, one open, one close, all the way down to that point. Beautiful. And there we go. Look at that beautiful volume now. Yes. All right, so just like on a color wheel, on the cutting wheel, whatever's on the opposite side is how you're going to either neutralize the shape or cross-check. So we've cut the hair horizontal to the floor. So the way that we're gonna cross-check is vertical to the head. So we're gonna take a vertical subsection parting, and what we're looking at here is for everything to look like you took vertical sections and cut like this. So let's have a look and see how even of a job we did. Boom, beautiful. One of my favorite things is watching the fall of the hair during cross-check to make sure that it falls in a beautiful and consistent pattern all the way down. We're moving into the third section of this haircut, the fringe. Now, fringe is an extremely important part of any haircut if it's a part of the haircut. And what it dictates is how full or thin we can perceive hair to be. So let's talk about balance. Her hair is naturally fine and has a lower per square inch density. So what I want to do is create a full fringe, so it's the first thing you see, and we will objectively think that the hair is 50% thicker than it actually is. Let's get started. We're going to start with the classic V-shaped fringe. Now, a V is a really important, or a triangle is a really cool way to utilize space. It's going to start at a small point, and then its whole point is to cover an open space. So that means that the further you go back, the more space it's going to take up on the side of the head. So this is going to be a full fringe moment to open up because we went back pretty far into the apex. Again, we want this hair to look nice and full, so a big bang is super important. In order to keep the fringe at its fullest, we're going to cut square to the floor. Now, we have to remember that curly hair is going to support itself, so it's going to project forward, and as far out as it can go, it's going to go up as well. So we need to take into account shrinkage. All right, so square to the floor, dropping down, that's my brow. This is where we would cut straight hair, but remember her hair's curly, and based on the curl pattern, I'm going to drop down to about the tip of the nose. In closing, we're just going to connect the fringe into the sides. So I'm going to have her turn to the side for me so you can see, and just very gently, so gentle, this is called biting, just right there on the outside, and we're going to repeat that on the opposite side. Next up, it's shampoo time. We'll be back shortly with all the details. We are at one of my favorite parts of the finishing process, the Justin Timberlake ramen noodle moment. So we've got the curls, they're collected, they're there, they're not fully fluffed yet, and now it's time to cross-check. So I'm gonna have my lovely model give you a demonstration of how we're going to cross-check. So first and foremost, we're gonna whip it forward, yes, and then we're gonna whip it to the side, 100%. And now, yes, thank you, get it, Beatrice. Okay, so we're gonna move it out. Now I wanna talk to you a little bit about how to place your client. One of the tips that I use is to ask them to place their elbows on their knees, which will automatically drop them forward. I'm gonna ask you to not push on your client in any way, whether it's their head or their shoulders. We just wanna be gently trauma informed. We never know what someone's gone through, and we wanna make sure that we're always being the ultimate respect, okay? So now that we have them in this position, I can see all of my zone placement in my perimeter. So before we just start cutting in our length zone, I'm gonna give the hair a little bit of a shake. Now, you wanna make sure that you're not down here shaking the hair. You're gonna wide finger, and you're gonna go inside the hair and just shake from the base, leaving the ends, and just see what falls out. And you can see that little guy came right out and that little guy did. So anything that's really jutting out of your perimeter is what you wanna go through. So here we go. I'm just gonna clip right into that shape. Beautiful, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. Cascaded all the way down, short to long. Beautiful. And then we'll come back up. Yes. Let's talk product, shall we? When it comes to curls, they all have some simple and basic needs. Number one, first and foremost, moisture. Your number one ingredient is going to be water. So when you're at that shampoo bowl, no towels, no t-shirts, no jersey, no fabric, all water. Keep it in the hair. Secondary to that, we used a mousse to give volume to her hair. Now, oftentimes we don't use things that give volume in curls because curls create their own volume. But sometimes when you have finer and blonde hair, it can need a little boost. So we used a root boost at the base, and you always want to match like the density of the product to the density of the hair strand. So you probably guessed it, we use lighter products. So light cream, light gel. Now I want you to think about this in terms of styling anybody's curly hair. The tighter the curls or the more coarse the hair, the more oil-based your product can be. The softer the curls and the softer the hair, the lighter your product is going to be. Very simple and formulaic way to understand how to style curls. Now let's recap this stunning haircut. In the beginning, there was a lighter fringe. We wanted full fringe to give the illusion that the hair was 50% thicker. We wanted to give volume to her hair and move our density up to the top to where we had volume up here and cascading curls down here. We also wanted to keep all of her length and get those curls popping. I'd say we did a good job. I am Presley Poe with Power of the Collective. Thank you for joining me.